work our hearts out in good cause and lie exhausted on the field of battle victorious. Because it's not whether we get knocked down, but whether we get back up as one.
Hello and welcome back to Tea Time with Hanukkah. So that commercial that I showed the end of is called the As One commercial. It was played right before the start of Super Bowl 55, this past Super Bowl. And it features Vince Lombardi, and they used CGI and animated special effects for his voice. And it was very surprising for a lot of people because he died 50 years ago. When I first saw it in Super Bowl, I was watching with my family, and it struck me immediately because of just the inspirational tone to it and just everything about it. And I got permission to use it for Neo-Aristotelian method. So that is what method I applied to this. It's the traditional method. It asks the question, did the rhetorics use the means of persuasion available to them, and did they use them well? It is interesting to apply it to this commercial because it doesn't just have discursive elements, it has non-discursive as well, which is a big piece of Aristotelian, is that it's only discursive normally. So in this case, I had to adapt Neo-Aristotelian to a more modern sort of approach, because this is a very common thing, is it's not just discursive. It's sort of like its presentation aids. So the writers that you have to look at the writers. The writers are the NFL writers. Doesn't end up being Lombardi. It has some quotes from Lombardi, but he was obviously dead. So when they created it, I decided to look at the writers as being the screenwriters more than anything else. For Neo-Aristotelian, you also look at context. The context surrounding this is one that currently we're all going to know in the future. It's more important for them to realize what was happening. It's more the year of 2020. The Black Lives Matter movements, the issues with protests and riots, the issues with the election, the issues with the pandemic, and all of these things were kind of taken into consideration when the writers created this speech/commercial. Another thing you want to look at is the 5 canons: invention, style, organization, and delivery and memory, which I combined together because memory is not as much an important piece to look at in the technological era. It's more the dynamism, which this was an extremely dynamic artifact. For invention, you can see Lombardi's quotes are used. One of the most popular is actually pieced in that clip at the beginning of this video. It's the part right before it's about falling on the battlefield victorious, that sort of line. You can also see their artistic proofs that they use. They use some logos and some of the ethos more with the fact that they use Lombardi, who has a credibility to football fans because he was so well known, very popular man. A coach's coach is what my father called him. What they use most is pathos, which is the emotional appeal. Pathos is, you can see it in every single every canon of Aristotle's canons. You can feel the pathos, and that was a big part of what I wrote. For organization, for example, you can see the pathos in the arrangement. You can see how they started it out with being, we're alone, the road is rough, and it progresses into this inspirational sense, which you saw in that clip that I played. Style, you can feel the emphasis on word choices, and it creates emotion, and it has a storytelling arch. It starts with the everything is bad, and it gets, here's the climax, and we're gonna rise again, like that sort of thing. And it helps the viewers feel understood. So the viewers, all the auditors watching this, which it was aired on a very, very, very popular American event on television, and everyone watching is going to feel, they're more likely to feel understood because they understand this rough exhaustion that they're speaking of, and they emphasize. For delivery and memory, as I said, memory, what we know now is that whether it was dynamic, and it was very dynamic, and the way they animated Lombardi's voice is very dynamic. It's very intentional. There are pauses for emphasis, especially at the end when he pauses before as one, to sort of drive home the idea that people need to be together in this. And just everything about it is very intentional, based on Neo-Aristotelian. And you can see the way they were trying to persuade their audience. They were trying to persuade them that they, as in Americans, are strong, have always been strong together, and they will rise from the ashes, but only if they do so together, which is why the commercial itself is called As One. All of the canons move together to contrast, for example, the three words at the beginning, rough, heavy, alone, with courage, stamina, teamwork. And it's sort of like a negative contrasted with positive. The writers didn't use all the means of persuasion that are available to them, but it is meant to be a 1.5-minute commercial, and that's another thing that you have to look at with Neo-Aristotelian doesn't look at that normally, because normally a speech that you would look at is a lot longer, and this is only meant to be a 1.5-minute long, so it can't be that long, you know what I mean? So they didn't use all of it, but it was enough for the 1.5-minute advertisement. Now, what I really want to look at is not just did they use these means of persuasion, but did they use them well? And while some criticized, looking at newspaper articles and social media, some criticized the CGI Lombardi, many took to the internet to praise the message and the delivery. So it would seem they succeeded on a short-term basis to persuade their audience of their message. These modern adaptations of Neo-Aristotelian are important because marketing writers use means of persuasion as well. And after examining, I would say that it is important to incorporate some of these into research, because if you examine only certain writers and not others, then you're missing a completely important part. And it's important to realize that a lot of these commercials we're seeing, they're using those means of persuasion to try to persuade audiences as well. And sometimes it would be helpful to look at ethicality. So that's basically what I used. And here's to that.